Anyone who purchased an iPhone 17 Pro Max in the past few weeks might want to stop watching right now, because what Apple has planned for 2026 could make that purchase feel outdated before the warranty expires. The iPhone 18 Pro Max brings technology that photographers and videographers have demanded for years, and the changes run deeper than the usual camera bump and processor upgrade that define most annual releases. Variable aperture arrives on the main camera system, marking the first time Apple has given users control over one of photography's most fundamental settings. Every iPhone from the 14 Pro through the 17 Pro uses a fixed aperture of f/1.78, meaning the lens opening stays locked at one size regardless of lighting conditions or creative goals. Professional cameras have offered aperture control for decades because it determines two critical aspects of every photo: how much light reaches the sensor and how much of the scene stays in sharp focus. The iPhone 18 Pro Max changes this limitation by adding mechanical aperture blades supplied by BE Semiconductor, creating a system where users can adjust the lens opening just like they would on a dedicated camera. The difference between fixed and variable aperture affects real photography situations in ways that matter beyond technical specifications. When shooting portraits, a wider aperture like f1.8 creates shallow depth of field where the subject stands sharp against a smoothly blurred background. Current iPhones simulate this effect through software that analyzes the scene and artificially blurs certain areas, but the processing often struggles with complex edges like hair or glasses, producing unnatural transitions that reveal the computational trickery. True optical blur from variable aperture eliminates these artifacts because the physics of light naturally creates the effect without any software interpretation. Landscape photographers gain the opposite benefit by using narrower apertures like f/4 or f/5.6 to keep everything from nearby rocks to distant mountains in sharp focus, something impossible when the lens must stay wide open at f1.78. Low-light photography improves through both optical and computational advantages. Night mode on current devices captures multiple exposures over several seconds and merges them to reduce noise, but this process requires holding the phone perfectly still and only works well with stationary subjects. Variable aperture allows the lens to open wider than f/1.78 when needed, gathering more light in shorter exposures that reduce blur from camera shake or subject movement. The combination of better optical light gathering and Apple's existing computational photography produces cleaner images with more accurate colors than either approach achieves alone. Resolution specifications point toward what industry sources describe as 1.5K resolution, placing these displays around 1644 by 3780 pixels, though Apple has not confirmed final numbers. The pixel density remains high enough that individual pixels become invisible at normal viewing distances, maintaining the crisp text and sharp images that users expect from premium devices. Color accuracy and brightness levels will likely match or exceed the iPhone 17 Pro Max, which already handles bright outdoor conditions well and supports HDR content with proper tone mapping. The dynamic island continues as a design element, though reports conflict about whether Apple will shrink its size or move Face ID sensors beneath the display. Some supply chain information suggests a smaller cutout that reduces visual interruption while maintaining the same functionality. Other sources claim Apple will use HIAA technology that removes portions of the pixel layer to let Face ID sensors operate from underneath the screen, potentially eliminating the visible cutout entirely. Both approaches improve the screen-to-body ratio, but the contradiction between these reports shows the uncertainty around devices still more than a year from release. Camera hardware maintains the plateau arrangement that Apple introduced with recent Pro models, positioning 3 lenses in triangular configuration on the back. This design consistency suggests Apple has settled on a functional layout that prioritizes camera performance over dramatic visual changes. The main sensor continues at 48 megapixels, a specification that provides flexibility for digital zoom and allows the phone to capture detailed images that can be cropped without losing quality. The sensor size itself matters as much as the megapixel count, and larger sensors capture more light and produce better image quality, particularly in challenging conditions. Processing power receives updates through whatever chip architecture Apple develops for 2026. following the pattern of annual improvements that have defined the A-series processors. These chips typically show gains in both raw computing speed and efficiency, allowing the phone to handle complex tasks like real-time video processing while maintaining battery life throughout a full day of use. Neural engine improvements enable faster machine learning for features like photo analysis, voice recognition, and augmented reality applications that run directly on the device rather than requiring internet connectivity. Release timing follows Apple's established pattern, with an announcement likely in September 2026, placing the device about a year away from current market conditions. This schedule creates a decision point for anyone considering an iPhone 17 Pro Max purchase today, weighing incremental improvements against waiting for a generation that brings more substantial camera capabilities. The variable aperture alone represents a significant advance that changes how users interact with the camera, rather than simply making existing features work slightly better. Pricing will likely follow the pattern Apple has established with recent Pro Max models, placing the device at the premium end of the smartphone market. Apple has maintained relatively consistent pricing across recent flagship generations, and nothing about the iPhone 18 Pro Max suggests a departure from this approach unless component costs force adjustments. The improvements arrive as refinements and additions to the existing formula rather than a complete redesign that would justify dramatic price increases beyond normal market shifts. Supply chain reports also indicate Apple has developed foldable device technology that could debut during the same announcement period, creating a situation where traditional form factors receive meaningful improvements, while experimental designs explore different physical configurations. Whether consumers respond more strongly to enhanced capabilities in familiar shapes or embrace radically different device forms remains uncertain, but Apple appears prepared to address both preferences. Video recording gains new capabilities from aperture control during shooting, allowing creators to adjust depth of field while recording rather than committing to settings before starting. This flexibility brings smartphone video closer to professional production capabilities, where focus and depth of field serve as creative tools throughout scenes. Combined with the processing power needed to handle 4K or potentially higher resolution video at various frame rates, the iPhone 18 Pro Max positions itself as a serious tool for content creators who previously needed dedicated video cameras for certain projects. The wait until fall 2026 requires patience from those eager to explore these new capabilities. Technology cycles have conditioned consumers to expect annual improvements, making the decision to skip a generation feel unusual even when upcoming advances clearly justify the delay. For photographers who understand aperture control and recognize its implications for creative work, the iPhone 18 Pro Max brings a meaningful evolution. For casual users who primarily rely on automatic modes and point-and-shoot simplicity, the improvements operate behind the scenes, producing better results without requiring any additional knowledge or effort. Current iPhone 17 Pro Max owners face no urgent reason to upgrade beyond the appeal of new technology, as their devices remain capable and will continue receiving software updates for years. The calculation changes for anyone using older models or considering a purchase today, where waiting one additional year brings capabilities that arrive infrequently in smartphone development. Variable aperture represents the kind of advance that changes the fundamental relationship between users and their cameras, offering control that was previously impossible in phone form factors.